Hi, it's Carrie Kenner, and welcome to my weekly vlog. So, I was having a conversation this week with a friend about what it is to be a writer. And it's an interesting question since most people write, whether it's pen on paper or at a keyboard. But there's something about that title that seems different than what everybody does on kind of a daily basis. So, I wanted to talk about my journey as a writer, and then at the end, I'm going to talk about some pointers for if you are a business owner and you are writing for your business. So, my writing career began when I was 5. And like a lot of kids, I wrote books and I'd write out the story and then I would illustrate it. And then I would either staple it together or punch holes in the paper and tie it together with yarn. And I'd make a cover and then I would go show my parents. And then it would get shoved away in a drawer somewhere to never be seen again. I don't have any of those original stories that I wrote from my childhood. And then as I got older and more sophisticated with my writing, I started writing a series of letters from a fictional farm family. It was kind of like a combination of the Waltons meets Grandpa got run over by a reindeer. I would write these hilarious stories about the escapades of this family and what they had to go through living in old times, whatever that meant to me, in a more primitive situation. So I would type out these letters on our old Corolla typewriter, and then I would share them with my family, and they would hoot and holler over these hilarious letters that I would write. One Thanksgiving, me and my cousins got together and we took all those letters and we each took a part and we read them in our old reel to reel recorder. And then we played them for the family and they were so entertained. And then in high school, I was writing essays and I was getting a little bit political. So we'd be given an assignment to write about some historical figure in American history. And I chose Sojourner Truth. And my teacher was like, that's not a historical figure. And I said, yeah, they are. They're a key figure in American history. And they're in our Encyclopedia Britannica. So certainly they're a historical figure if they're in there. When I read that essay in front of the class, they all kind of just stared at me like, who is she and why is she talking about this person? But I didn't care because I had educated them. So let's see. So far, I'm a fiction writer, a script writer, and a political writer. And then I kind of turned my attention to visual arts. I did a lot of drawing and designing, and I actually started my first career as a graphic artist after high school. So I wasn't writing as much, I was expressing myself through visual art. And then fast forward a bit into my 20s, and I was working in healthcare administration. And I was on a team of folks who were implementing a claims processing system. So, what I would do is I'd go talk to the people who were going to use the system and find out what they wanted it to do. And then I'd go take that information to the IT folks and let them know the functions that it had to perform. Then I'd go to these meetings with all the department managers, and they would just keep talking about the same things over and over and over. And while they were yakking, I would write down all the procedures that people were going to need to do to use these systems. And one person looked over and said, "What are you writing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm writing the procedures." And they said, "Oh my gosh, we need a procedure manual." Because keep in mind, this was the first time that we were implementing a computerized system in this organization. So I became the de facto UX writer, and I would write all the procedures for how the users were going to interact with this system. A little over 20 years ago, I started my own business. So now I'm doing business writing and I'm writing a lot of course content. And I wrote web pages and brochures and all sorts of things to tell folks about my business and the things that they could get from it and what I was like and about all of my classes. I was writing a lot for my business and I thought I was pretty good at it. Then the pandemic hit and all my classes came to a halt. And I decided, like half the people in the world, that I was going to write a book since I was stuck at home and there wasn't much else to do. So I decided to write a book that was based on the birth doula training that I had been doing for the last 15 years. So every morning I would get up and I would open up my laptop and I'd start writing. And I wrote and wrote and wrote. And then kind of realized we're not going back to in person for a while. I actually need a new job. I need something new to do. And I had been doing business and marketing coaching for doulas for 10 years. And I thought, well, maybe this is something that I can do for more businesses and I can get better at it. So I became a Story Brand certified marketing coach. And I learned so much about how to write for business and realized that I'd been doing it pretty badly all along. I had a good reputation, and I think that's what saved me. But I learned so much about how to write for businesses for the purpose of selling your products or services. So now I was a marketing consultant and I was writing all this copy for emails and websites and blogs, and I loved it. I started working as a copywriter for a company a few years ago. And there was one day about a year ago where I was sitting at my desk and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a writer. I was working on copy that day. I was doing some editing for my own book. I was ghostwriting a book for another person. I'd basically been sitting at my desk writing all day, making a living at it. And I was like, Eureka, I've arrived. My friends had been telling me for years that I should write a book because I always had such great stories to tell. And here I was doing it. One of the things I discovered is that I really like writing for marketing. I really like finding the story that takes a customer with a problem and shows them how to solve it by engaging with a particular business. So now I'd like to tell you about what I know about how to write for business. So text, copy, content, what does it all mean? Those are all words that refer to the words that go on a page or in a project. In marketing, we tend to refer to it as copy. Copywriters often lament, why do we call it copy when the whole point is to come up with something original? I don't know. Most of the stuff that businesses write fall under two categories: nurture or sales content and expository or educational content. Nurture and sales copy is the bread and butter for building relationships with your clients and hopefully nudging them towards the buy button. Educational or expository copy is where you get to play the wise sage, doling out information so you can establish trust and show people that you know your stuff. And then, of course, the point is to write compelling copy that doesn't sound like it came out of an old Sears catalog. There's a quote, "Copy is what is written to encourage people to buy our goods or services." Sounds simple enough. And most business owners think they are the best candidates to write this. After all, they know the most about their products and services. They can tell you about all its features. They can tell you about why they created it and how they made it. They can tell you the story of how their grandmother developed it in 1895 and how the secret has been passed down for all these generations. But none of that nurtures a relationship or sells a product. And that's why most business owners are the worst copywriters for their own business. Trust me, I don't write good copy for my own business. When business owners are so wrapped up in their products, they forget to listen to their customers. They play a guessing game about what their customers want, and sometimes they hit the nail on the head, and sometimes they don't. The secret sauce? Good copy is not about the business or the product, it's about the customer. Their problems, their dreams, the pesky roadblocks that are in the way. It's about understanding them better than they understand themselves. Effective copy is written for customers. It's not written about them, it's written to them. It needs to describe, highlight, and show readers how your service will solve their problem. Imagine copy as a mini drama. The hero, that's your client. Start with their problem, use their words. You can use Reddit or Quora to search for real-life examples. Then build the tension. Dive in deeper to how their problems are messing up their life. Paint the picture, show them the life they could have, and then identify the villain. That's the obstacle that's standing in the way from them getting the life they want. Then you get to present the magic wand. That's you. This is the game changer that they need. Then you introduce the call to action. This is the leap that they need to take. And then finally, their transformed life after buying the product or service. Everything you write should weave in this story, making your customer the star of their own show. Then we have expository or educational copy, where you get to educate and elevate your audience. You get to flex your knowledge muscles. This copy is all about educating your customer. Think social media posts, about me pages, blogs, and case studies that don't just brag about a product or service, but actually teach something really valuable. The topics for educational copy can be anything. They can be related to the problem, the future vision, the obstacles, the features, and even ancillary things that are somewhat related to your business. Here's where you can feature the story about grandma in 1895. If you write copy for your business, here are some pointers for how to get started. If you're stuck on what to write, AI is great for generating ideas on topics that your audience would be interested in. Just tell the AI bot what your business is all about, tell them about your ideal client, and ask it what your audience would most like to learn about. AI is great for generating content, but remember, the heart and soul of writing comes from a human. Once you've figured out your topic, it's time to start writing. I have a fun and easy guide to help you get started writing a few paragraphs without wasting hours and stressing yourself out. It starts with creating an outline, learning how to flesh it out, and then putting on the finishing touches. Pretend a friend asks you, how do you do fill in the blank? Answer that question in 5 short sentences, add 2 more sentences to flesh out your answer, then edit it. Here's an example. Pretend a friend asks you, how do you repot a plant? Here's the answer in 5 short sentences. Number 1, find a pot that will fit your plant. Make sure it's twice as wide as the root ball. Number 2, get a bag of soil. Number 3, find a work surface and cover it with old newspapers, a sheet, or an old shower curtain. Number 4, turn the plant upside down and make sure that as much soil stays with the root ball as possible. Number 5, put rocks, broken up pots, other large objects down in the bottom to assist with drainage, and then set the root ball in and fill the sides with soil. Now add 2 more sentences to flesh out your answers. Number 1, if the roots are wound tightly around the root ball, gently separate them and trim off any excess. Number 2, water the plant immediately after transplanting. Now that you've got that outline, take those sentences, write more detail, and turn each one into a paragraph. When you're done, edit it, and then send it to a friend for review. Now, here are some pro tips that I use so that writing doesn't feel like a chore. Number 1, I turn off my email, my phone, any distractions. The only thing that's technological that I have access to is the internet for doing research about whatever I'm writing about. Then I write. I don't worry about whether it's good or not. I don't overthink it. I just write about what I put down on the page and every idea that comes into my mind. Then I take all the sections that I've written and I put them together like building blocks. I can move them around so it makes more sense for the reader. Now, here's a really important thing. Don't edit until all the sections of your project are done. We always think we want to make things perfect before we kind of put them together, but that's not how it works, and you're going to waste time. When you've got everything where you want it to be, now it's time to start editing. One of the best ways to do this is to read it out loud. When you read it out loud, you hear the words and you see if it makes sense or not. Edit as you're reading out loud. Then, when you're done with that edit, you might want to run it through a tool like Grammarly to check for punctuation, misspells, things like that. At this point, you want to have another set of eyes on your work. Send it to a friend or a writing buddy and ask them to proofread it for you. Then make your final edits and be done with it. Perfection isn't real, so stop chasing it. Now, you may be thinking, can't I just get AI to write the whole thing? The thing is, AI is great for things like finding topics, suggesting an outline, creating headers or subject lines, and editing for clarity. But if a bot writes your content, well, it reads like a bot wrote your content. So leave the content writing to you. Writing about your own business is tough. If you're into writing, continue swapping with another business writer and writing copy for each other. It's a great way to mix things up and sharpen your skills. And then you can decide if you want to call yourself a writer or not. I hope this has given you some great food for thought, some ideas about how to write for your own business, and a little bit of entertainment as you've learned about my journey becoming a writer. Thanks for watching.